Okay, today we are going to learn how to do some computations that involve percentages and word problems. And then we're going to do a little bit of sales tax because we definitely need to understand how that works if we're to function okay in society. So the first thing I want to make sure everyone is aware of is that percent means to divide by 100. Okay, so it's actually kind of like an operational word. Another way to look at percent is it means out of 100. So for example, if I said, 50% of my students are sick with the flu, that means 50 out of every 100 students I teach are sick with the flu. So when we are trying to go from percentage format to an actual number format, we have to divide the percent. So if it's 25%, for example, we have to divide that by 100. Now we never need to pick up a calculator to do that. Remember, in our previous lesson, when you divide by 10, you just move the decimal to the left one time, and it's the same thing for 100, only you go left twice. So you just move the decimal 2 times to the left, and that is the exact same thing as dividing by 100. So that's what we're going to do with these 10 problems. So if I want to turn 4% into a number that I can work with, I'm going to think, okay, well, 4 is 4.0. We're going to move the decimal not once, but twice. And then any empty spaces that we have from doing that, we have to fill in with zeros, okay? So if I have 4%, that's the same thing as multiplying by 0.04. And remember, you do not have to write this 0 at the very end on the far right. You never have to write those zeros on the far right. Okay, it's going to be the exact same thing for 6%. So if you move that decimal 2 times to the left, you'll get 0.06. Same thing with 25. If you move twice, you'll have 0.25, 50%, 0.50, or if you want to just shave that 0 off, it's 0.5. 114%, we would have 1.14. Now you want to be very careful when you have decimals mixed with percentages. So the first thing I recommend is writing 3.5. And then do your decimal movements on paper. So 1 and 2, and then fill that in with a 0. So now you're looking at 0.035. Okay, 100%, that's just going to become 1. Move that decimal twice. If you have 1%, you want to think of that as 1.0. Move that decimal left twice. You'll have 0.01. 0.5% is where I start seeing a lot of mistakes, especially if you're a kid that likes to do this in your head. I recommend you slow down for a second and you think to yourself, okay, decimal 1, 2, okay, that would be 0.005. So a lot of kids will write 0.05, for example. They won't have that extra 0 in there. So you want to just be careful about that. I always recommend writing it down and actually moving the decimal on your paper for yourself. All right, same thing with 0.25%. If you move that decimal twice, you'll have 2 zeros and then a 2 and a 5. So that's the first thing you have to know is when you're going to do a percentage problem, you need to know how to represent that percentage as an actual number so that you can use it in your calculator. Second thing is, as we get into this world of word problems, there's a very useful skill that will make these word problems a lot easier, and that's called translating. So think of math as its own language. Just like any other foreign language, math has words that represent symbols, and part of our job is to recognize those words and convert them into symbols. So we're going to focus on 2 words for today. The first one is, and that means equals, like the actual equal sign. The next one is of, which means times. So especially in percentage problems, you should be multiplying when you have percentages. So we're just going to practice translating these 3 problems and see how it goes. So the first word, and we go in order as it appears. The first word says what? Well, I don't know. That's what I'm being asked. I'm asked to figure this out. What? So if we don't know something in mathematics, we represent it with a variable. So we'll just call that whatever they're talking about, x. The next word is. Is means equals. And then 50%, we have to turn that into a number that we can enter on the calculator. So we're going to turn that into 0.5. Then we have of, which means times, and then 60. So I'm actually doing 0.5 times 60, which is going to get me 30 for that one. Now number 2, same vocabulary, just it's in a little bit of a different order. So I'm going to start with the 40, but then it says is, so I have to change that to equals. Then it says 20%, which is 0.2, 0.20, but 0.2. Then it says of, which means times, and then how much. I don't know how much, that's what I'm being asked, so I have to use a letter to represent that. So notice now, here's my problem, but there's no more words in it, so I turned everything into math, symbols and numbers. So the next thing we're going to do is try to remember that when you have a number beside a letter, that already itself means times. So there's really no need to hold on to this dot. We can just kind of merge that together to make 0.2x. It means the exact same thing. And then we'll finish it up by dividing by 0.2. Now, one thing that's interesting is a lot of kids anticipate that they're going to get 20 as an answer. Well, that would be if you did 40 divided by 2, but 0.2 and 2 are very different numbers. So a little rule of thumb is when you are dividing by a decimal that is less than 1, you're actually going to get a bigger outcome. So the actual answer to this problem is 200. And I know that seems weird because we're used to when you divide, you get a smaller number, right? Think of it as decimals are fractions, and fractions are division problems. So what you have is 40 divided by another division problem, and so it kind of reciprocates the operation you're doing and makes a multiplication, essentially. And then we'll try one more here together. We have a 3. It says is, so equals. What percent? I don't know, so I'm going to have to write x. And then of means times, and then 30. So we have now turned everything into math. If we do x times 30, we're going to get 30x. So remember, we can just smush those together, and you can write x 30 if you want, but we're used to writing the number out in front, so that's how I'm going to keep it. And then we finish her up by dividing by 30. 3 divided by 30 is 1/10 or 0.1. Now you just want to reread the question. The question was asking for a percentage, and this does not have a percentage symbol. So you don't want to circle this and say, here's my answer. You need to convert that back to a percentage form. So to go from a percent to a decimal, remember how we moved left twice? Well, we're just going to reverse that. We want to go from decimal to percent. So you're going to move the decimal to the right 2 times, which is going to get you 10%. So in the next 6 problems, I actually just want you to set them up because that's the most important part. I want to see if you can translate these on your own. So again, remember, we're using equals for is, and we're using times for of. And you need to convert all your percentages to decimals. So go ahead and have a try at it, and when you're ready, you can resume the video, and the answers will be up there. Okay, so hopefully you have the same setups that I have here, the correct orders here. Now, number 4, I would expect you to need to pick up a calculator to help you. For the sake of time, I'm going to tell you get 9.46. Number 7, though, I would urge against using a calculator. 25% is one of those special percentages, so the trick is to divide by 2. So 60 divided by 2 is 30, and then divide by 2 again, which is 15. Everyone else, you just want to go ahead and do that merging step, merge them together, and then we're going to finish them up. So number 5, we're going to divide both sides by 12. We get 0.83333. And then we want to turn that into percentage form. It does ask, what's the percent? So it's about 83 1/3%. All right, number 6, we're going to divide by 0.35, and that's where you want to just have a heads up. A lot of kids think this is weird, but we are dividing by a decimal that's less than 1, so the number is going to grow. Number 8, we're going to divide both sides by 20, and we get 15%. And then number 9, we'll end up getting 266.6 repeating. The last part of our lesson is just a really quick thing about sales tax. So in Pennsylvania at this time is a 6% tax rate. If you're not quite sure what that means logically, it means that every time you pay $1, you also have to pay 6 cents. So there's 2 ways to show 6 cents. There's 6 with a little cent symbol, or 0.06. Same thing. That means if you go out and buy something for $100, you'll have to pay 6 cents 100 times. That's how tax works. All right, so there is a quick, slick way to compute your sales tax. So I know for me, if I want to estimate what my cost should be at the register when I'm done, I'll round whatever I think my total is in my shopping cart, and I'll multiply the price by 6. So you take your price, you multiply it by 6, and then you just move your decimal left twice. Okay. The other thing you can do is you can whip out a calculator and take your price times 0.06, but it's going to be the same answer regardless. So for example, if you spend $4 at the store and all your items are taxable, you're going to pay 6 cents for each one of those $4. So you're essentially doing 4 times 6, which is 24. And then you move the decimal left twice, which is 0.24. So your sales tax is going to be 24 cents on that purchase. Right, same thing with B. If you're going to spend $10 on merchandise, you're going to multiply that by 6 to get 60, and then move the decimal twice. Now it's 0.60, and that is 60 cents. So your sales tax would be 60 cents. So I'd like for you, for C through F, to go ahead and compute your sales tax. And we'll see. Go ahead and pause the video, and when you're done, you can unpause and see if our answers match. All right, so here's all the work for how we get our answers. Hopefully we match up. I'm hoping that you rounded to 11, 6, and 8 when you did, or excuse me, 9 when you did this. That way your computations are a little bit easier to do in your head.